And record. Kia ora koutou, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Baskets of Knowledge. And lucky, this is episode number 150. How cool is that for us? Given that this was just an idea a few years ago. As always, I'd like to share what I've been thinking about over the last week. But before that, apologies from Tane. He can't make it again today because he's still exploring the South Island, which is really awesome, and having a great break, which he deserves. So I've been thinking about in the last podcast we had, our guest came up with a quote that is really just stuck in my mind. And the quote was, people, but I don't want to butcher this, yeah. It's, if it matters to people, if something matters to people, that it doesn't, wait, I'm butchering this totally because it's so profound. It is, if something matters to people and they don't mind, they're the people, because the people that don't mind are the people that matter. So the people that don't mind are the people that matter, and the people that mind are the people that don't matter. And that has got me thinking about people in my life who I worry about, to think about why do I worry about what people say, because if they're the ones that mind about things, they're the ones that shouldn't matter. But the people that do matter actually don't mind what I do. So I'm trying to think about then how that actually reflects in life, about how many times do you do things because of not what we want to do, but because you're trying to please other people and they don't actually matter. So just a reflection point there. And I'm going to try and get that quote properly sorted before I win the podcast. But it's not about me today. I'm very privileged and very lucky to have two amazing young people on the podcast that we've been trying to get on to the podcast for a while, because they do something that is really profound, really inspirational, but also really just heartwarming in so many different ways. And I have a personal attachment to this organization, because, and we'll talk about that a bit later on. But I want to thank them for giving up the summer holidays and ask them often to come into the podcast and have a chat about why they do what they do, and also who they are as people, because they are a representation of an organization, but they're actually humans as well that are doing their own thing in the world. Welcome to Baskets of Knowledge, Louisa and Catherine.
Hello, thank you for having us.
No worries. This is going to be fun doing a three-person podcast. So before we get started, let's start with Louisa. Louisa, who are you at this point in time as we start 2025? Who is Louisa today?
Well, today, this year, I guess I am finally a university graduate. I've just completed 5 years at Otago. I'm also a Hold On to a Friend's co-founder and member. But I'll be passing over the reins slowly but surely this year to Kath, the other guest on the podcast.
Beautiful. What a great segue. Kath, tell us about you.
Yeah, so I'm a member of Hold On to Your Friends, thanks to Louisa, who's also one of my best mates. And I'm going into my 6th year at Otago, which is so scary to say. But I've done a degree already, so I did a psychology and neuroscience degree, and now I'm doing medicine. So I'm in my 3rd year of that.
Awesome, beautiful. So you're both, the fact that you're both students and you both have, one is at the end of this part of the journey, and Kath, you're still halfway through your journey, but having done a degree already, which is really beautiful. But before we get into your own personal stories, let's talk about Hold On to Your Friends. What is that? What does that stand for, and why are you both involved in that there?
Sweet. So Hold On to a Friends is actually an incorporated society, which I think sounds really cool. We're Hold On to a Friends Incorporated. Maybe that's because I'm a Scooby-Doo fan, so it's like Mystery Inc. Incorporated, but I don't know. But yeah, it is a like by students for students group that's advocating for a safer student culture. It was started back in, I want to say 2022, but it could have been 2021. I should know because obviously I was there. But we started it in memory of Sophia Crestani. And so I co-founded it along with some of her friends, with the help of Sian from the Social Impact Studio, to advocate for safe student culture. We basically are just trying to be the change that we want to see in the culture, because we've all had experiences that weren't particularly great and not what we initially thought the Dunedin student culture was going to be like. And obviously Sophia's friends and family lost their loved one, and we want to prevent that from happening again. But yeah, we do a bunch of different initiatives, all aiming to like clean up the student area and just promote and foster a culture that actually cares about each other and its people and its environment. And I guess that would kind of sum it up. It kind of changes, and I hope that it will continue to change and be fluid with the different members that come in, because I don't think it can ever stick to being one thing or just focusing on one thing. I think every single year we need to review, like, what do we need to target, what needs to change, because the culture is constantly changing, and therefore our work needs to constantly change. And it has to be reflective of the members and what they want. So yeah. Kath is then, yeah, I've dragged so many of my mates and I'm like, please share my vision and like the vision of our past members. It was a big stress worrying about like, oh no, like, is anyone else gonna like care about this the way that we care about this in the future? But it's been really heartening to see, especially this year we had heaps of members, like new members, come on board and really get stuck in and like share the vision. Like, I remember after dinner with Sophia's parents, like a team dinner with Sophia's parents this year, like Kath being like, I see the vision, like I get what you mean. And I was just like, yes, like it's so good. And it made me so happy. So yeah.
I love that. There's so much passion there. And I love the fact that Hold On To Your Friends has actually got you bringing your friends into the society, which is really cool. Right? It's in the words, which is really, really beautiful. But I
Yeah, I
guess,
think the name perfectly summarizes it. Yeah.
yeah,
Which we borrowed from a Dunedin clothing brand that is like no longer in action. So they were really great letting us take that name. That was awesome.
yeah, that's such a great name. Do you want to? I mean, you said you took it from a company, but why that name there? What is the deeper meaning for you both for that name there?
Well, I'm sorry, Kath, I'm going again.
Oh no,
But
you go
yeah,
ahead.
we were kind of like umming and ahhing in the first few meetings about like what on earth we could possibly call this in a way that like it really spoke to why we were here, and that was because of the death of Sophia Crestani, but also allowed people that did not know Sophia to connect with it and really feel it. And I think Hold On To Your Friends is perfect because we all want to go and have a great student experience. We all want to go out on nights and have a great time, but we also all want to wake up with our friends and we want to hold them close and we want to have all of those memories and fun times with our friends. And so for me, that is kind of like, that is what it means. It just means that we get out, we go have fun, we enjoy these experiences, and we love our friends and we wake up with our friends at the end of the day. So yeah, keep them close.
Yeah, and it's very poignant because, as you said, you go out with your friends, and sadly, sometimes people, life happens, and you end up with other people, and then go, we are my friends, and there's an assumption that your friends are always going to be there for you, and they are, but sometimes in the heat of a moment, they're not there. But there's an awareness that this is important in so many different ways.
Yeah.
But I guess my question I'm going to throw this to Kath. Yes, so Kath can get into the limelight as well. Why was this an important thing to happen? So we know, for those of you that are listening for the first time, so essentially what happened a few years ago, quite sadly, Sophia Crestani lost her life at a party, just because the party became overrun with lots of people. It was overcrowded. There was no crowd control, and sadly, there was a bit of a stampede, and poor Sophia lost her life. And as I said to Kath and Louisa just before, I knew Sophia when she was in year 12 and year 13, before she came to Otago. So there's a bit of a personal attachment here to this whole story as well. And I guess for the founders of Hold On To Your Friends, was that the trigger point for this to happen? Or do you think that even if we didn't have this tragedy happen, do you think we would have had something else happen? Because, sometimes in tragedy things happen, but we know that we didn't have to have the tragedy for this to happen if there was another vision just before that there. So yeah, I'm guessing was that the spark that required it?
For me, I found Hold On To Your Friends separately from Sophia. I did it because I had some experiences that I did not like in the student experience. And I was like, whoa, this is not what I was expecting. Like, bottles were thrown through our window every single night that our neighbors drank. And I was like, this actually isn't that fun. And I eventually found my way by like going and talking to people and being like, hey, I really want to like do something in this. I got brought into the room with Sophia's friends and some other students. But yeah, I unfortunately think that this happened, that the only reason that we exist is because of Sophia's death. And I actually don't know if it would have happened without it, which I think is just, yeah, it's just awful that sometimes you have to have a tragedy to make change happen because you have to make people care. And I think this was something, like her death was something everyone in the student community felt and really cared about, because they realized that you can't actually take these things for granted. Like, you need to realize that there are dangers and consequences to these actions and having this kind of culture. And yeah, the only reason that we are here is because of Sophia. which is the sad but truth, you know?
Yeah.
I
And
think it's also interesting, just following on from Louisa, saying everyone in the group has had experiences and everyone we've talked to has had sort of negative student culture experiences. So it's not like it still needed to happen and it was only sort of because of this that it came about, which, is a sad thing, but we're glad to have sort of the space now where we can hear these different stories and sort of, provide solutions or, people they can talk to about those. So
Yeah.
and I
And I
guess you're
think,
right.
yeah,
Sorry.
I'm not sure. Like, I think there's other students that have like passed away from student culture and whatnot. So I think it's like it's not Sophia isn't the only one as well. And we really want to stop there from being any more. But it's just kind of like, yeah. Luckily, her friends and family are so incredible. I'm absolutely blown away by them that they have come together and showed so much strength and grace to make change happen. Because you could just try and like never want to think about it again, but they're like, no, like we are going to like pull together and we're going to stand strong and we are going to make change happen. And I am in absolute awe and complete like I owe them all of hold on to your friends. You know what I mean? We really owe it to like them, their strength to be able to be here and do this stuff. So yeah.
And I love that. I
Um,
love that. I love how you said that because it's not just. I mean, Sophia is Sophia's name is linked to it, but as you said, Louisa, there's a lot more um, things that happen in some culture that is not favorable. But sadly, in life, actually, if there's no tragedy, no change happens. If you think about anything in
yeah.
life, when there's change, it's because of tragedy. And I guess, this is a great legacy for anyone that is going to live in a student culture that actually there are people out there that are caring for you. Because as you said before, in fact, let's go back a little bit and talk about your personal experiences. What is expectation versus reality? So you land in Dunedin, you hear about the student culture and yeah, let's talk about your own personal experiences, which might make it more real as well. Who wants to go first?
I don't mind either way.
go,
Yeah,
Lou.
All right. Well, I'm going to be honest. I'm from Hawke's Bay. We have a bit of a party culture up here too.
yeah,
I went to Dunedin and I was like, I'm coming down to get lit. I was like, I'm here for the party culture. It's gonna be great. Like, I'm gonna be away from my parents. Nothing's gonna matter. I'd visited my sisters on Castle Street before, so one of them's 3 years older than me. So I'd visited her on Castle Street. Loved it. Thought it was great. Then I came down. First year was really interesting for me. I went hard. One of my mates got into a really serious first aid incident in first year. There was like he got an arterial bleed on a night out by putting his arm through, like the safety glass failed and he slashed his arm. I had to do first aid on that. That was pretty jarring. Didn't expect that. At the time, I don't think I really realized or like understood the like reasons for it or like really processed it that much until later. And then in second year when I was on Castle Street, that was when the bottles were thrown through our windows. Like people would break into our flat. Like someone took my sliding door off its hinges and just like came into my room in the middle of the night. And I was like, this is actually terrifying. Again, I didn't really process how unhinged and crazy that was at the time because you just kind of accepted that student culture. But there is that feeling of like vigilance and never feeling like quite truly safe. And then as time went on, I got into it because I really wanted to do substance safety and like educate people around their use of substances because I was like, y'all do not know like what's going on. Like people were just doing really silly stuff, and I was like seeing people get quite hurt. And then that transitioned into like the wider student safety, and it got me thinking about student bars. And I was like, wow, like all of these problems pretty much stem from the fact that we don't have a student bar. Like my mate put his arm through safety glass in the hall. We were drinking in the hall because there was nowhere else to go. These people were throwing bottles through our windows because they were drinking at their flats, and there's no one there regulating them, telling them not to do that. Like all these people breaking into our houses because there's nowhere else to be. Like if we
yeah,
had an LED light in our lounge, so they would just let themselves in because they thought it was a party because we had a pink light on. Like we were really just sitting there watching a movie and having some cups of tea because we were kind of grandmas. But like, it's all because there's nowhere for people to do this stuff, which I think to an extent is a rite of passage. I think you should be allowed to go have a great student experience, drink way too much, vomit, you know what I mean? Like crawl out of bed the next day to go get a dusty breakfast with the girls and the guys. Like that is, every teenager should be allowed to do that, but we should create an environment where they can do that safely. And currently we do not have that. And so that was kind of where, my expectation versus reality, I was like, this is going to be so much fun. It's going to be a massive, like, cool party. And then I was like, this is actually like kind of scary. And I've seen so many near misses. And
yeah.
that was after Sophia died that I saw all of these near misses. And it's just kind of like, damn, like if there's that many, just in my experience, how many are there actually in total. Yeah.
No, totally. What about you, Kath?
I think I sort of had a very different expectation to Louisa in some ways going into it because I went to Otago for the health sci first year. Classic.
Yeah.
And I didn't know many people sort of already there in the sense of like going and visiting them and that sort of thing. And so I think it was definitely a shock when I got there. I've always been a social person and, like wanting to go out and like hang out with friends and things. But I think, like Louisa said, that sort of shock of like, okay, I'm seriously like on edge when I go out to parties and, like even sort of drinking in the hall. As you say, there's always sort of the safety element sort of took me by surprise. And I lived in a flat on Dundas Street, right near Castle Street, and we had the big red boys throwing bottles, breaking in, trying to like invite themselves in. And we just thought we had to put up with it. I didn't really we weren't told, that this was like a normal thing to happen, and like I was like, why isn't anyone questioning it? I'm like, I feel uncomfortable and I don't want anyone else to experience it. Um, and so I think that was like a hard thing to adjust to, is that there wasn't this sort of like, other than your friend group talking about it, there wasn't this like sort of community voice being like, this is kind of screwed up, guys. Like, we shouldn't be putting up with this. So I think my expectation was that it would, we'd go to a few parties, you'd go, to the pub or whatever, except there aren't any student ones. And have a good time with your mates, but there were just, yeah, again, as Louisa said, too many sort of near misses or nights that ended in a way that weren't as sort of happy as they started out, sort of thing, because of the actions of others or because there wasn't a place that you felt safe to go out. Like, we only got to enjoy starters for about like 4 or 5 months, before
Was shut down,
that
yeah.
closed, and that was great. Like, that was great. I was at Ardena, and short walk down, and it was great fun when it was there. So
Yeah.
we definitely miss the student bars.
Yeah. Like, to add to that, you saying like the community voice, I feel like I definitely felt that because obviously I like went to Unico. I was there for that culture. I never thought I would be on this side of the fence, like promoting safety, which like I feel like it seems like, I feel like the hard thing is that it seems like safety is lame, but it's not. It's just that we want to like still have a good time without these near misses. But that was really it for me. It's like changing. It was like third year when I was like, I actually don't like me when I'm that drunk, and I don't like being in these situations because it's like, if you don't, like if someone's throwing bottles at you or whatever and you're like, hey, can you stop that? I asked our neighbors to do that, and one of the boys who was in the group throwing bottles at us, I was like, yo, can you like tell our friends to stop throwing bottles through our windows? Like, it's not that fun. Like, my mate just got lacerated a foot, we're taking her to ER. And he just goes like, it's not my flat, like I can't tell them what to do. And it's like everyone kind of had this feeling of like, you're lame if you stop people from doing that, and the only response to that is to like escalate. It seemed like that was the only acceptable kind of like course of action. And I was like, that's just crazy. And then you don't feel safe, so then you drink more because you can't leave the house unless you're like so pissed that you don't even realize how crazy it is out there. And I think, yeah, the lack of anyone being like, nah, actually no thank you, but still being like someone that you can relate to, because I feel like the people that were saying no were people that I was like, I just don't feel like I identify with that person, you know what I mean? Like, they were really like safety conscious. It would be like Red Frogs, who are like, I think, a religious organization, and so for a lot of people they will just like not like listen to them because of that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, that's kind of like where we kind of step in to be like, so how do we make safety cool? Which people probably don't think we're cool, but like, yeah, I don't really care. At least we're saying it and being relatable and honest about it.
Yeah, and the cool thing is, it's not about not having fun. It's not about not drinking. It's none of those things. There, it's like, hey, go and have a good time. And
Yeah,
it's really
and remember
interesting.
your night.
Totally, it's so interesting because I've worked at Otago for a very long time. Used to, sorry, and none of this happened. Well, there was still a crazy student culture, but it was very different because we had lots of bars in the northern quarter. You had maybe 5 or 6 bars in the northern quarter there. So you wouldn't have all these flat parties. People would go to the bars. And as you said, Louisa, and you said, Kath, they would just be contained. They'd have a good time. They'd be contained. They'd have the bouncers there. They'd have the security staff making sure that, okay, cool, let's keep things safe. And I think it's only when all these things close down that now, as you said before, where do you go? You know,
Mm.
when you live in a hall of residence, they kick you out at 9:30 or 10 o'clock, and you're like, right, cool, where do I go? Onto the streets. And once you go on the streets, it's all carnage, essentially. And also because, as you said before, these are young people are young people, and you want to have a good time. But then there's also people that want to have a good time, but they don't want to do all the other stuff there. But now you're forced into those things there because it's the right thing to do in that environment there. So yeah, I think it's awesome that you have this great social conscious to do this here. But I guess my question for you both is, why does this happen? Because I'm trying to rack my head about this. I'm like, Louisa lives in Hawke's Bay, Kath lives in Auckland, and Hills, around the country. They would never visit home. What
Yeah.
happens in Dunedin when, especially in second year, when I'm trying to break my head. So you'd
I have
never
a
throw a bottle at
theory.
home. Okay, let's go. Go ahead. Let's go with your theory. Beautiful.
So my theory is because when I visited my sister 3 years before I came down, it
Yeah,
wasn't like this. Like there was kind of like a semblance of like civility. What is that the word? Yeah, I
yeah,
think so.
we'll go with that. Yeah,
And like people weren't as like bat
yeah,
shit, excuse my French, like as when we were there. And I think it's one to do with the fact that we've shifted from on license alcohol to off license alcohol, and that has like the like proliferation of high strength cheap alcohol is insane. Because I remember thinking like I need 16 standards as like a 17-year-old female. That was obviously not true. I've got to like admit I have a great metabolism for it. Like I could handle it better than I should have been able to. But at the same time, like that's insane. I don't need that. I went to a BYO the other like a few weeks ago, had like 2 glasses of wine, and I was like, damn, I'm tipsy. Like clearly I did not need 16 standards. So there's like those unreal expectations. But I think what happened was it was the proliferation of alcohol and then COVID, I think really changed Dunedin. And I think there was like an absence of what the party culture was because we kind of had a year where there was nothing happening on Castle Street. And so then you have these people seeing these like TikToks of what it was like before, where you see the massive street parties and you see like a few people doing really outrageous stuff. And then they insert those expectations and kind of like make them like extrapolate like some crazy ideas from them, and then they join Castle Street and then they like put
yeah,
their like unrealistic expectations onto the area, because it was like we had those insane initiations. I think it was last year with like the live ducks that were killed. That has never happened before. Back in the day, they barely even had
there
initiations.
was
Like it was pretty
negotiations.
unheard of.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
yeah, and it's kind of like unraveling the myth of student culture has been probably one of the most eye-opening things about doing work with especially the police. I also never thought I'd be working with, but they're so great. Shout out Jonesy, Sergeant Jones, Alcohol Harm Reduction Officer, and Inspector Ian Paulin. They are some of the coolest dudes ever. They're just like, yo, like this didn't happen years ago. People have just like since COVID and since the change from on license to off license, have just inserted their own ideas of what Castle Street and student life is like, and it's just completely untrue. And yeah, I think people have just run with it and they think like the outrageousness is so cool, or it's like they've done something so embarrassing, and then you get that anxiety when you wake up that the only thing they can think to do is kind of like just get more drunk to forget about it, or just be like it's got to be normal because otherwise I've done something that's really not okay and I don't want to admit that it's not okay.
yeah.
But yeah, that's basically my theory is that COVID left a blank spot for people to like put their own ideas on it, and it just has spiraled.
I guess also like they probably, like adding on to your COVID theory, I feel like it's also the fear of
COVID.
missing out and the FOMO. I feel like
Yeah.
they're like, oh no, but they did do this, even though they
Yeah.
don't know. They didn't, there wasn't that continuous sort of like
Mm.
progression. But like there were, because we like Dunedin had COVID sort of after Auckland, it was like
Yeah.
2021 when we were first flooding, I think. And I just remember it was ridiculous, like COVID positive parties where you had to present a rat test to get it. Like I think it just was one of those things where people were just so confused by the situation as well. And so like had this mindset of like, well, I've missed out on so much by now, so I need to like make up for it, or like I've heard all these stories, or my parents and siblings said it was the best years of their life and I'm stuck inside. So then and then like you think about how the density of the student population, like if you think about Castle Street, Leith, Dundas, like there are a lot of people in a small amount of space.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of, egging each other on, or, being able to sort of bring what
Yeah.
is to life, I feel like is another.
Yeah, and I think it extends further than student culture with like the COVID thing. Like that's happened in so many different spheres of like society.
Yeah.
Being alone and like having all that time on the internet or by yourself and just being like, damn, I'm missing out. That when you get out the other end, you kind of just forget what life was like before, a little bit. And I think like an embellished story or a myth is so much more compelling than the truth that is like they kind of just chilled and drank a few beers and that was it. Like they didn't go crazy and do as much as you're all expecting. So yeah, that's unfortunately working against us.
And it's so crazy. Humans are just so crazy. I remember when we had the 2006 um, craziness in Dunedin, when there were riots and other crazy stuff
What?
there, the
Yeah.
riots and stuff. And I remember I was there. I was working out of my college at that time there, and I saw it happen. And I was like, "This is crazy." And then in 2007, there were riots again, and I was like, "What are there riots about now?"
Mm,
And everyone I spoke to was like, "Oh, we're doing it because they did it last year." And I was like, that makes no sense. So
mm.
and then 2008, and I
Yeah.
was like, this is so crazy.
Have a cause.
I was like, what is going on here? This is so foreign to me because growing up in Africa, I
Yeah.
was like, when you have a riot, there's a reason for a riot. There's something's happened. But, okay, in
Mm,
2006, there was a quote reason for the riot, quote in inverted because it wasn't really a reason. But 7 and 8, I was like, well, this is ridiculous now. We're just doing it just because others did it. So going on to what both of you have said, it's just this embellishment of a myth that they need to carry on or they need to go
mm.
better, which is crazy. Humans are just ridiculous, aren't we? When we do these things, yeah,
Yeah,
especially
but
when you're young.
I that's exactly it though, is it's like we know that young teenagers are dumb. Like I've been so stupid. I've made the dumbest decisions ever with like perfectly good information. I've made a silly ass decision. And it's like we know students are going to do this, and
Yeah,
I think that's what has mind boggled me is all of these kind of like adults being like, well, it's personal choice. Like students are adults now. Like that's up to them. And I'm like, you like we're labeled as a vulnerable population in the LAP, and that's because we're idiots. Our frontal lobes are not fully
yeah,
formed. Like, we do not know what we're doing. We just want to have fun. We don't know anything about delaying gratification. We just want the fun now. And I think if you expect a student who's lived their whole life at home with like mum and dad pretty much making decisions for them to make sensible choices as soon as they have the taste of freedom, then you're just kidding yourself. So it's just ridiculous to not prepare for that and safeguard against that and create an environment where they actually can be done with minimal damage. I'm not saying we're ever going to be able to completely stop the damage,
yep,
but we can
yep.
sure as hell minimize it. And it's like, why are we not taking a harm minimization approach? Why are we acting like we like students make sensible decisions even when our frontal lobes are fully formed and we're no longer teenagers? We make dumb decisions. So it's kind of just like, come on, sort it out. But yeah, I think the riots, the good thing that came out of the riots, Ian Pullen was the alcohol harm reduction officer at the time then, is that they changed their policing strategy. And this is what he said, like they stopped working against the students and started working with us. And
Yeah,
I think that's what's incredible about Dunedin is we're really lucky to have the police treat us the way they do because a lot more of us could be locked up in the drunk tank than currently. I don't think they even do that anymore, but you know what I mean? Like they really treat us well and do everything they can to do harm minimization. So they're onto it.
And they want to
understanding
hear a lot from us, which is nice.
totally,
They
Yeah.
totally.
always want to hear our perspective and get us roped in for ads, don't they, Louisa?
Yeah, I know. That was like we did a police campaign early last year for the police, which we actually need to share on our media. But that was really cool. And that was a moment where I was like, oh, like it's embarrassing talking about my experience sometimes and like admitting that I really did not like myself on the piss and like that I did some really dumb stuff. But at the same time, it's like if I'm embarrassed to say it, then no one's gonna say it or no one's gonna admit it. So at least like even if I only get through to one person, that's enough, because then they could get through to another person or another two, and it goes like that. So that was a moment of like, no, I'm gonna do it, and it was actually really cool. I really enjoyed it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
When
they
I
are really.
when I think about the two of you right now, something comes to my mind. I think what you guys are doing with Hold On To Your Friends is what I like to call the people that work in the community are forces, but what you both are doing, you're force multipliers. Because you have all these forces out there, but you need force multipliers to actually make things happen. So the fact that there's something, as you said before, just going out and admitting it is a force multiplier right there, just by one person. But a lot of the times people are just like, oh, someone else is going to do it. They will do it as a force, but there's no multiplication of actually what's happening. So it's really, I want to take my hands off to both of you for that there, because it's the impact that you have. You might not see it today, but I bet you in 5 years' time or 6 years' time or 10 years' time, there's going to be a huge impact based on real life experiences. And one of the other questions I have for you is something that I've always battled with when I was working at Otago, and I still battle with all the time, is when we say to young people that when you come to university, you are now going to be treated like a responsible adults. In my mind, I'm like, 1 week ago, they were at home with mom and dad. And the minute you come to a week, you get told that you're a responsible adult. I don't know. That doesn't sit well with me. That just like boggles my mind. And I keep and that's being said all the time, everywhere you go. What are your thoughts about that? That's pretty crazy, right?
Yeah, ridiculous. I just think it's completely unrealistic. And it's almost just like it's just an easy way out for avoiding responsibility, or like being sensible and being like, yo, they're not going to be smart, so we might as well plan for that. But yeah, I think it's just absolutely ridiculous. Who is going to believe that?
Yeah,
like, people call me an idealist. That's being a complete idealist.
100%.
I think another thing that was interesting when we go to flats and talk to students to try, like Louisa says, to stay relevant, which just makes me feel really old.
I've embraced being old.
6 years, Kath. 6 years, just saying.
Yeah, I'm like the crazy old auntie, like going into these flats, like, come on, what's
up? Which is always lovely, and we're very grateful for people that come let us do that. But one of the core things that seems to come out of that is they're like, well, we get kind of plonked in this world with no education on how to navigate it. Like, just generally, like, we talk to them about, dealing with a hangover, or like, what would you do if, your friend was unconscious with alcohol? Like just things. I mean, I'm trying to think of other examples, Louisa, but I thought that they were sort of saying they were just
stuff tested,
thrown in the deep end of sort of life, like, navigating party student culture, as well as navigating just being an independent adult. And now you have to do all your own laundry and your washing up and your whatever cooking.
Like, people don't know how to pay bills, or like what healthy home standards are. Like, yeah, it's a whole new mode. It's not like we have a civics class in school. That would be really cool, but no.
Yeah, so we're trying to make a little handbook this year, which is
I'm also trying to work with the police to action. There's some upcoming work, which you'll be meeting with Jonesy and stuff ongoing, but trying to help them action the Good One Party register, because like at the moment you kind of like sign up and you give your name and like address and the expected number of guests there, so that the police can like, more easily get there if there's a problem and like find who's a host. But like personally, I feel like that's like the bare minimum. Like there's not really anything benefit to the tenants for doing that, other than, like if something goes wrong, they get help quicker. But trying to like piggyback on a flat chat before they host, so that we can go on and be like, yo, like, did you know this? Like, from Sophia's inquest, I learned that you can actually get like sued, or like you can, or like be done for like manslaughter if you block off the exits to the house or something, because that's like a health and safety risk, and that's like under the building safety codes or something. But like so many student parties block off exits or block off certain rooms and like board stuff up. Like there's a party organization website that offers window boarding up services, which is just so strange. But it's because we have this mentality of protect the property before we protect the people, because we assume that the people are going to be assholes to our property. We don't assume that people are going to be assholes to each other, even though time and time again we have been shown that that is actually what is happening. But yeah, like trying to do something like that, and also do like a kind of informal first aid of like, if this happens, do that, because I've used my first aid training. I'm luckily I'm trained as a lifeguard, so I have first aid training, and the amount of times I've had to use it in Dunedin on a night out is more than I've had to use it at the beach when I've been on duty, which is just insane.
Same, yes. It's sad. Yeah,
but it's like, what would I do if I didn't have that knowledge?
That's right.
There'd be at least one person that was not with us,
It's the scary thing, is that you think about if you weren't there, or like a friend that's first aid trained, like it's I'm glad it's becoming a trend to do that. But
Mm.
it's also we were talking about the cost barrier of just doing that. Like you can't. It costs. I think it's like 200 Australian.
$100, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
the day, for one day, and one trying to get the time off work to get that done, two the money to do that, unless your work's
Yeah.
funding it.
And that's the thing is like we've got such a limited budget, but that's why I'm like we've just got to do things the informal way because that's the only way we
Only
can
way.
do it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Can I tell you a crazy idea I had? So I've always had this idea that when people come to Otago in the first year in the halls, we look after them well. But in second year, we don't do anything.
Mm.
We just say, see you later, off you go. So about 4 years ago, I wrote a proposal to the university to say, I was like, my dream job would be for me to run a center for second years. So when you go flat in your second year, the university has a team or an organization that goes through all the things that you spoke about. How do you actually pay your bills? What happens with this? All the things that you've just spoke
Yeah.
about. And I was like, hey, I would love to run a team. And the reason why this came up was when COVID happened, second years for the first time flatting had no idea what to do. And I was getting all these messages and all these texts going, hey, Prajesh, what do we do? Where do we go? Who do we talk to? And I was like, this is a crazy gap that if you're living in a hall, you get a message from the wardens going, this is what you got to do, blah, blah, blah. But I was like, so I wrote the proposal to the university and they're like, yeah, whatever, this is not a problem. I was like, so I'm pretty pissed off by that. I can see there's a huge gap there, and it's awesome that you're trying to fill it in. But as you said before, you are doing so much with so little budget, and which is why. And sometimes you got to have a budget for things to happen. And so in my thing, I wrote, hey, what we could do is we could subsidize Red Cross first aid training, do all this kind of stuff for exactly the same reasons that you are speaking about. So hopefully in a few years' time, that'll become a reality where you don't have to have a separate organization, but people can work together, student voice for student voice, but also have the bigger parties. Because let's be honest, the only reason why people are there is because it's a university. So the university needs to also have some buy-in into this whole thing of how do we look after second years holistically, not just for a cleanup for the street party or whatever, but actually holistically. Well, how do you pay your bills? So
I
anyway,
agree.
that was just an idea I had, and I was
No,
yeah.
We're
no, I
trying to
fully
do
agree. Oh, sorry, carry on, Kath.
and I was just going to say we're trying to do a baby step with that handbook of sort of pointing out services like people don't know about Campus Watch and that you can hire a trailer
Yeah.
for free
Yeah.
and that you can call them to like take you home or they can just walk you anywhere or like we're going to do cheap eats, like how to budget sort of in a little handbook and just drop them for free in the letterbox because that's all we can do with our funding at the moment. But
And like ebook it as well to save on printing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, it's one of those tricky things where I think one of the roadblocks we keep running into is most people won't do anything unless they're being paid or they're legally obligated or it makes them look
100%.
bad.
Yeah.
Which is so frustrating. But I've just realized that like they just have it like I won't go on an anti-capitalist rant, but it's just kind of like one of those things where you realize that you have a fundamentally different viewpoint and way of like moving through the world than other people. Like I do stuff because I have a feeling in me that I can't sit still if I know that there's something that I can do about it or I can't ignore it. And I say that I'm afflicted with a conscience, and I'm lucky enough to avoid most of the time the apathy that I think is so pervasive in our society and is the like one reason why we don't get change done because people are like, well, why should I do it? Like, there's no real benefit for me, and I'm like, the benefit, like, actually, there is benefit for you because volunteering and giving back to people is really good for you and is a protective factor against mortality. So that's actually something that's in it for you. But also, like, you should just do it because you care and because you should do it. And I think that's what I really battle with and struggle with the most is that people don't do it because they should. There are some people that do. One of my absolute favorite community collaborators that we have is Dan Porter from Unipol. He's the manager at Unipol, and he always helps us with our trash retreats collection. He drives the trailer in the van. He is the only reason that we can do mobile trash collection. And yeah, like he is just amazing. Like he just gets up and he's like, yeah, I just want to do it. I just want to help and I want to volunteer my time. And I would love to reimburse him and pay him for that, but we don't have that money. So that's really unfortunate. But like those are the people that make stuff happen. And those are the people that we really need to keep connecting with to be able to do the stuff that we do on the limited budget. Same thing with like Bowling Club and Yours Oti Poti who cater our events. the only reason that we can actually give so many students food is because they are reasonably, like, they are either kohar based or like really reasonably priced to make it accessible for everyone. So yeah, it's working with the people that do stuff because you should and not because they're getting from something from it.
Exactly. I love that. I love that, doing things because you want to, not because you have to, makes the whole, changes the world totally. Totally. When you want to do things from here, heart driven as opposed to head driven is beautiful. And yeah, shout out to Dan. I think Dan's pretty awesome. And so shout out to her. Sorry, to him, not to her.
Yeah.
So I want to shift the focus just a little bit. So you've spoken about some of the negative experiences. What about the positives? Because and amongst all this here, there's also some positives that must be there for people to go down there and still embrace that there. So just share some of those positives there, so we know that we can balance this out to actually, hey, there are some crazy things that happen there, but there's also some crazy awesome things that happen as well. Or maybe not.
Well, I met so many of my best friends down there. Like, you meet so many of your people at uni, I think. I think Otago is the best place to be a student, even though it's pretty dangerous at times. I think it's the best place because you're so centralized. The city is a student city. There's so many cheap eats. Like, Chopsticks 101 is the best place to go and share plates with your friend. It is amazing. And having like the little spinny center is perfect. Love her. There's so many like good nature walks within like really close proximity. The courses at Otago, although there's a lot of really good courses that have been cut, RIP geology department, but like they do have an amazing education and really cool stuff on offer. So yeah, and I think also like, yeah, you don't get student culture like you get it in Dunedin. Like, we have, like, that's why people from other universities come down for like O and Flow, is because we have stuff that's happening and like people are just like, it's open invite, come along. So you are very involved, which I think is quite cool. But we just need to foster it in a slightly better way. But yeah. Also, the positives are like meeting people like Dan Porter and the owners of Bowling Club and yours, Otty Potty, and all of the other, and like Ashley from Waste Management, like all of these amazing people and communities and groups that are working in the same space as us and have been working for much longer than us, like Ian Paulin and Jonesy, like that do genuinely care about the students and the people in Dunedin society as a whole. That's been a massive positive, just like meeting all these people that I'm like, oh, you're good humans and you are doing it because it matters. And that's really heartening and fulfilling, because sometimes it can get a bit disheartening.
I can imagine. What about you, Kath?
Yeah, I very much agree with Louisa in the friendship department. It's been amazing to meet so many people that you never would have crossed paths with otherwise, so many different walks of life, and so many cool experiences that you get to share together. Like St. Clair's so close, you can go tramping, you can go, try all those nice restaurants. Me and Louisa have definitely ticked off a few. I think I like to think of Dunedin has been such a nice place to grow and figure out what my priorities are and like what, the sort of life I want to live and who I want to surround myself with. I think that's been a really nice part of Dunedin. And yeah, I feel very supported there. I think is, you've got your flatmates, you've got people you study with, you've got friends you met outside of it. You've got people that you went to school with originally, they, come trickling back. It's just a really nice community, and Auckland wouldn't have that where I'm from, that, people either live at home, have to live far away because rent's so expensive, and we were talking about before, there was no centralized campus or anything. So it's really hard to, I think, form those connections with other people and find those like-minded people. Yeah.
I feel like Auckland and stuff are all a bit more dispersed, and so people kind of like grow up faster, if you know what I mean. Like, I think the cool thing about Dunedin is you kind of get more of an interim before starting the real world, is what I call it. I'm joining it soon. But like, you get to be a student fully in all aspects of life. You don't have to be like only a student when you're studying and then an adult at home, and like, because you can't make any noise in your apartment or wherever you're staying because the family next door has like a new baby and will call noise control on you at 4 p.m. Like, I think that's quite cool, is that you can really get into the student way of life and just like chill and not be too worried about real world adult things. But yeah.
And I
there's
love that
also no
because
benefit.
exactly. I love that because it's just the balance, that holistically overall place where you're
Mhm.
studying is great for experiences, and it's not that saying it's a bad place. It just needs some safety protocols to keep it just safe. It's not like let's
Yeah.
stop doing that. That's just to make it a safe place, so people can go home and go home and report back on the positives as opposed to damn all these negatives happened to me, which is a really really cool
Mm.
thing. And I guess for the two of you, I guess my last two questions, because we've been talking for about an hour or so, is which is pretty cool. My first question for you is for Louisa and for Kat, as you think about hold on to your friends, and if we fast forward to say 5 years from now, what would be the ideal impact that you would hope for hold on to your friends to have? Um, yeah, and I again been working in the whole idealistic world and realistic world, I guess as well.
Um, I hope hold on to a friends is just kind of becomes a framework that students can use to create the change that they want to see in their community. And I hope it's just got people that are like showing up because they're like, yeah, I hope it just makes people care. Honestly, I hope it just makes people care about themselves, their environment, and each other. Um, yeah, whether that's like themselves in terms of mental health, physical health, all of that stuff. I hope that it just makes them like actually give a damn and realize that like they actually can be the change that they want to see. As cheesy as it sounds, it's like you've just actually got to go out there and do it because no one's going to do it for you, kind of thing. Hmm.
I love that.
Yeah.
What about you, Kath?
Again, I agree with Louisa. I think we sort of um our sort of co-pupper is about, with every event organized and every conversation we have with a different flat is bringing us closer to our goal of having a stronger and safer student community. At the end of the day, we want everyone to have a good time, and be safe while doing it. And we want everyone to have as good of a Dunedin experience as we have all had, without those sort of, sprinkled negative ones along the way. And I think opening people's eyes to that the student experience doesn't just mean you have to go out and drink. Like we are doing a lot to give people new experiences, whether that's we organize gigs and do like get people in with the Dunedin music scene, or we were working alongside uni crew and giving back to community organizations. So it's nice for people to think that it's not just the student community that's in North Dunedin. There's, other places you can give back to as well.
Yeah, like just adding to that, I said, and then like with RNZ or something, I said, drinking culture has subsumed student culture. I hope
Um,
Hold On to a Friends helps reverse that. And like drinking culture is 100% a part of student culture, it always will be. But it doesn't have to be everything. Like there's so
no,
much more to do. Like people in that concrete student block just literally need to go out and touch some sand on Sinclair Beach and see some sea lions because it will make you feel so much better, bro. Like you'll actually feel so much better for it. So yeah, I hope that is another thing that comes out of it.
and I want to elaborate on that because I think, as you said, Louisa, wherever there's young people, there's going to be alcohol. Whether it's
Mm,
in Whangarei, whether it's in Auckland, whether it's in the Hawke's Bay, whether
yeah.
it's going to happen, right? It's going to happen, right? It just happens at different extremes. And unfortunately,
Mm,
what has happened is the media has portrayed, as you said, for the drinking culture is the only thing that happens in Dunedin. And as you said, it just keeps perpetuating. But if you stop seeing that,
yeah.
then actually see the other things and go, actually, wait a minute, there's actually, as you said, the tramping, the walking, there's the reservoir, there's some pretty cool things there. I think if we shift the focus and
Mm,
go, actually, there's more to life. Yes, you can have a drink or two if you want to enjoy yourself, but that's one part of your student experience when you are at a university.
mm,
I went to university in South Africa, and the university in South Africa um, is regarded in Africa as the highest number of alcoholic students per capita in Southern Africa, because it's a crazy place,
yeah.
right? So coming from there to Dunedin, I was like, oh, like for like, this is crazy. But again,
Yeah.
it's not crazy. So
Yeah. South Africa know how to drink.
yeah. So
I feel
it's
like
not.
touching on that.
Sorry,
Sorry, I was
Kath.
just going to say, touching on that media aspect that you were saying, how they portray Dunedin, I think then it also turns into a self-fulfilling prophecy for
Yeah.
students that they
Totally.
should be enjoying that, or oh, it should be part of my lifestyle, or
Mm,
the only part, and then
yeah.
it just, as you say, the cycle keeps going.
Yeah, it's labeling theory at work, isn't it? Like the
100%.
mongrel mob is called the mongrel mob because the media labeled them mongrels. We've
Yep.
seen this time and time again.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, but anyway, I mean, I think that's, there's so much there, but I think that the beauty is that you have started something here that is very beautiful, because the more young people, it's really quite funny. This is contrary to the more young people that I see coming to university, the less they want to drink. It's changing. The whole narrative is changing, and and if they want to drink and have a good time in a safe space, then that's awesome, which is really cool. So
Yeah.
it's awesome that what you're doing there, and also putting out there that this is, your friends are important and important part of your whole journey. As you both of you mentioned that when you're in Dunedin, you met all these cool friends and lifelong friends, and when you hold on to them, as the name says, that becomes even better and better and stronger as you go forward. So it's really, really beautiful, very
Yeah.
beautiful. I
That's
have
good.
I have one last question
Luckily,
for you
we
both.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, I have one last question for you both before we really wrap up. And I mean, I could keep talking to you forever because you guys are amazing at what you're talking about. It's really beautiful, and the
We
energy.
love to yarn.
And I also love the energy that you both come with, because it's pure passion. When you have passion, things are so much easier as opposed to having to do things. The question I have for you is for you
Yeah,
both.
we ain't getting paid for it.
Yeah, show me the money. Yeah. Like this podcast, no money. But that's cool. We do it because we love it, right?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Well, yeah, money can't buy happiness, and yeah, I don't know. I feel like money will never make you fulfilled. So,
you heard it. You heard it here, right here. Which leads on to this great.
yeah.
My next question for you both, independently, is this podcast is called Baskets of Knowledge, and every week we invite our guests to share a piece of knowledge to put into our basket. So you've shared lots today about hold on to your friends, but also your own experiences with some great knowledge there. But I'd love you both to share any piece of knowledge, whether it's through hold on to your friends, whether it's through your university experience, or whatever experience that you like to put into our basket.
I feel like for me, based on hold on to your friends, literally teamwork makes the dream work. I think hive mind is insanely powerful.
Mhm.
And we have, come together, as Louisa said, with not only just our members, but also outside organization reps, the police. And we've been able to do very big things, and none of us could do that on our own. And I think that goes to show with just life in general too, like it's just getting through uni, you want that support network behind you and a team, and that
Mm,
continues throughout life. So finding those people that share your values and your similar goals is really nice to, I don't know, help you get through life. I think that would be my
I
last.
love that.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that because that's a great learning for life. When you find your tribe, you find your vibe, and
Mm,
as you said before, if you try to do things by yourself, nothing happens, and it's awesome what you can do with hive mind thinking. And with hive mind thinking, people
yeah.
are gonna challenge you, because when you get challenged, it's not a personal challenge; it's actually a different view of the same idea with a different perspective. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah. No, 100%. We would not be here without teamwork. So definitely does make the dream work. My thing would kind of be building on the quote that you said at the start of this episode. It really reminded me of some advice that my sister gave to me. She's my 5-year buffer to the real world. Thank goodness, because boy, she saved my ass in a lot of situations. But she said to me, because we were just talking about the fact that she has a very positive self-talk and I have quite a negative self-talk. And she just said, Louisa, you've actually just got to be your own best friend, because at the end of the day, you're the only one that you go through life with 100% of the way. So it does not matter like what other people think, what other people like say you should do. If you don't want to do it, or you don't like think that's for you, then don't do it, because you're the only one that owes it to yourself. And at the end of your life, when you're on your deathbed, or you realize like, shit, I'm dying, are you gonna regret like doing what you did for yourself? Probably not. Are you gonna regret all the dumb stuff you did to please other people, or because to try and fit in with other people? Probably. Like that doesn't matter to you in the day. I think that's really freeing to me and has helped me do a lot of the stuff. Like it helped me then go and talk about my experience on that police campaign, because I was like, yeah, like I want to try and do this for like like old me, like younger me, when I was too scared. Like, I would have loved to see someone say that, and maybe it wouldn't have gone through to me, but maybe it would. So I think, yeah, being your own best friend and trusting in yourself and supporting yourself is really important. And it's like you can only really work and get along with other people when you get along with yourself, if you know what I mean. Like, I feel like that's a thing. You've got to look after yourself before you can look after other people. So
That is so profound.
yeah,
It's another way of saying, when you're on an airplane, they always say put your own oxygen mask first. If you're not your own
yeah,
best friend, how are you going to be friends with anyone else if you don't like yourself? If you don't like yourself, how are they going to like you? So that's a really beautiful, beautiful saying, because I think we all
mm,
forget that we're all chasing to impress other people. We're all chasing that there. But if you don't impress yourself, or if you're not happy with what you're saying to yourself,
yeah.
then yeah, that's a really, really powerful. I think
Be
that's a
your
whole
own
answer.
bloody best friend.
Amazing. Who's your best friend? Me. What? Amazing. Yeah. How good is that?
What?
What?
That's my
Yeah.
best friend. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
exactly.
Me in the mirror. Boom. What a great thing. Yeah. It's a bit like how Marissa Peer or Gabby Bernstein, they say when you wake up in the morning, give yourself a high five, give yourself a high five because
Yeah,
hey, as you said before, you are your own best friend. So beautiful. What a lovely. So
yeah.
but in order to be your own best friend, then you can work with teams. Otherwise you can't do that there, right? So it works really well for both of
I
those
think
pieces of
so, yeah,
knowledge.
because you've got to
Yeah.
be confident in yourself and like trust in yourself, because otherwise, how are people going to trust in you? You know, like if you're not sure of it, how
Mm.
can you ask them to be sure of you? I think is quite important. Obviously, to an extent, like don't be too full of yourself, but like it's not a
Yeah.
bad thing.
Yeah. I mean there's arrogance and there's just being humble,
Mm.
which is two different
Yeah,
things. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Beautiful. Team, this has been a really beautiful, beautiful chat. Like I said before, I can keep talking to you, but we're going to
Yeah.
say, is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up the podcast?
I would just say thank you so much for listening to us. Thank you so much, Produce, for having us on. We really appreciate that. And if you're a Dunedin student and you want to make some difference in your community, come join Hold On to Your Friends. I will never fail to plug it when I get the chance. But yeah, whether you want to like get stuck in fully with the team or just volunteer at an event, we would be happy to have you. So yeah, let us know.
Awesome. It's beautiful. Kath, any last words from you?
Thank you so much for letting us have a yarn with you. It's been really great, and we would love to see you this year at Hold On to Your Friends. We've got lots of spots open, and we're looking to grow our hive mind. So get around.
Yes. Drink the Kool-Aid.
Beautiful. I love it. So I guess, thank you both for jumping on. Like I said before, we've wanted to be on here for a while, but this is a great, great timing as the year starts as well. But also, I just want to reflect back on what you've just said that, it's all about having a good time, but a safe time. Young people are going to be young people, and we're not saying don't do this and don't do that there, but whatever you're going to be doing, do it safely. But also, whether you're going to go to university or polytech, whatever you're doing in life, when you go out with whoever you go out with, remember that you're looking out for them
Come
as
back.
well. Come back with them, or make sure they get
Yeah.
home safely. So, whether you are a 17-year-old or whether you're a 45-year-old, whatever age group you're in, this is the message that is up, that is universal. That when you look out for your friends, you also have someone else looking out for you at the same time. Because the world is a crazy place, and there's not good people out there. There's some bad people out there. But if you can be that one good person there for that
Mm.
one person in your life, life doesn't have to be too crazy hard. So thank you so much for that. That's a beautiful share from you both. Thank you so much. For listeners out there, thank you for
Thank
jumping
you.
on. No worries, thank you for jumping on. If you haven't heard this podcast before, hopefully like and subscribe it. If you've learned something today, would love for you to share with that. If you haven't learned something, go back and listen again because you weren't listening properly. But till next time, don't forget to keep smiling. Don't forget to be happy. And most of all, don't forget to put something into your basket of knowledge. Till next time, talk to everybody. Bye.
Bye.